Thank you so much for coming to join us for another episode of the Stash Cast, where we have interesting conversations with interesting people focused around the world of commercial real estate and prop tech. The Stash Cast is brought to you by Needle. What if you could use data and analytics to predict real estate transactions? You can with Needle. Come check it out at Needle, Nedl.us to learn more. All right, I'm excited today. We've got Adam Harari of Prop Trends at Prop Trends IO, founder, principal there. And Adam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Stash, thank you for having me. Really excited to, kind of launch prop trends into the world because pretty much we've been acting in stealth, like nobody really knows about it just yet. So it's
All
nice
right,
to
well,
talk about it.
world premiere. We need some of those DJ sirens. Um,
Yeah.
well, I guess before we get into, who you are and how you got here, what is Prop Trends IO for the listeners?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, PropTrends.io, we're trying to make real estate investment more accessible to the average person. And what that means is really just giving people the information they need to make a decision to either buy a property investment or sell one. And mostly that this is revolving around the single family, multifamily type of property. This is not a commercial app just yet, but obviously we have plans in the future to do that. But right now, this is targeted at mostly the small mom and pop, investor or realtor who wants to provide the information to the mom and pops.
So, I guess, how are you helping people make better investment decisions?
Yeah, good question. So right now we're kind of building a machine learning algorithm that basically takes all of the information that is available on the MLSs. So basically any property that's for sale, and we're trying to figure out which property would get you your best bang for your buck. So whether that's cash, return on investment, rents, all that kind of stuff, we're trying to basically predict what would be the most ideal rent for that property that is
Mhm.
on sale, and then provide all the metrics related to that after the fact. So we base it all on that number, and then we provide you like a nice, beautiful report that kind of shows you all the cash flow, all the KPIs that you'd need to make the decision.
That's interesting. Well, let's maybe back up a little bit. How did you get to become a founder of a company like this? What's your journey?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So, I was working with someone, about a year ago on a different type of project where it was like basically trying to match up buyers and sellers of properties. So, like, say I had one for sale, I would look it up in the database and it would automatically match me to people who I can contact, to sell my property. And me and that founder, we kind of had like a falling out, so to speak. And I said, he didn't want to really get involved in the day to day. I was doing the day to day, so it just didn't work out. But anyways, from that, I said, I need to find a new idea, something fresh. I was in wholesaling real estate about 2, 3 years ago, and I enjoyed it, but I always wanted to get past the wholesaling and find investments that were profitable. And right now, I didn't see like the exact thing that I'm building on the market where basically the algorithm will try and sift through all of the data that's out there and provide me with the best optimal project, real estate that would possibly be a good investment. So like there's a lot of companies that allow you to like plug in a certain property and see like, okay, here's all the information about that property. But there's none that like kind of sift through it and say, out of the 100 properties that are available in this zip code, these are the top five. I can't
Hmm,
find that anywhere.
that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of investors get started in the wholesaling world. I don't understand wholesaling really at all. So, can you explain how it works to me?
Yeah. So I'll roll that back. That's a good call out. So the wholesaling industry has been around for a long time. I mean, way before even I probably was, old enough to even do it, right? And basically wholesaling and at the base of it is you have a property that a seller owns, you call them up, or you text them, or you send them a flyer in the mail or something, and they either contact you back or you're contacting them, and you get the property, you're able to convince them to give you the property under contract. So it's not meaning like there's a sale yet. It's just, hey, seller A says, I want 100,000. Okay, I'll give you 100,000 cash on so and so date. Now, from that moment that a person gets the property under contract, you don't have a lot of time because you have to get this sold to somebody who wants to buy the contract from you. So like a wholesaler doesn't actually want to go through with the transaction.
Mhm.
They would literally want to sell this contract and assign it to somebody else who is going to be a fix and flipper or someone who wants to buy it to rent it out. Okay, so say 10 days pass, I get it, I sell it to a buyer. Now I'm out of the contract. That's it, it's assigned. Now, the reason wholesaling is profitable is because I could take that $100,000 contract and sell it to that buyer for 110,000 or more. I've seen crazy all types of numbers out there. Like I've seen people make $300,000 on a wholesaling contract. Rare, but it happens. And so that's basically wholesaling in a nutshell. There's all types of different things. There's creative finance nowadays, which is all in vogue because of the different rates, like the fact that rates are so high nowadays. So, but that's basically wholesaling.
That's interesting. I've always approached real estate from the brokerage perspective, which is kind of the same. It's a similar thing, except I'm licensed and wholesalers are
Mhm.
not. Is that 10% spread the typical spread that you tend to see?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that it's a percentage spread. I feel like it's mostly like if you ask like any senior wholesaler, they'll tell you it's probably like 10 to 15 grand, on
Oh,
average. Yeah, it's not even like a percent. Sometimes you'll see some opportunities where you get that like you'll make 10% on the contract, but for by and large, like we're talking about houses that are probably in the 3 to 500K range that they're dealing with. They don't normally deal with $1 million plus houses because there's no real opportunity to fix and flip those types of properties. Where you get the asymmetry is really in the real dirty fixer-uppers, like the ones that you walk into and you want to throw your clothes away after.
yeah,
Those those are the types that these guys are really flipping.
right. It seems so chaotic. Is it?
It's an incredibly like difficult, I would say, like if someone out there is listening to this and is going to say, "Oh, wholesaling sounds great. I'm going to just jump in and do it." And let me tell you, it's a challenging thing to do. It's not easy, from A to Z. Like there's so many different things that you have to take into account where you have to market, you have to be able to sell, you have to be able to build up a buyer's database so that you can sell off your contracts. Now, there are many communities out there that exist. There's, communities on Reddit, there's big ones on Discord. For instance, like I was part of a 20,000 person one. So there's plenty of support networks where you can learn to do it. I just wouldn't expect to get rich overnight doing this.
Yeah, nothing I think worth doing is a get rich quick. There is no get rich quick. And if somebody's pitching you something like that, you're the fool if you buy it, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly.
Um,
And there's tons of like courses and people who like gurus who
yeah,
are offering, money, oh, sorry, offering
courses,
courses
if
to
you pay
teach
me,
people. Yeah,
X
you
number of
pay like
dollars.
$700, you know?
Yeah. They
Um,
we have a similar thing in the multifamily industry where syndication is, you're the sponsor, you can bring on other GPs to help bolster your balance sheet for borrowing power, and then you go out and raise capital, and
mhm,
you can take a course for, I don't know, thousand to tens of thousands of dollars on how to
right,
do it. So just depends on who you're buying from and who's selling it. So it's interesting.
right.
So that makes a lot more sense than kind of where you came from and then why you were trying to tackle this problem. Because you and I are when we had our first call for for everybody, I had signed up for a demo on your website and you called me.
Yeah.
This is over the break, and I was like, hello, and we figured out who each other were, and it's like, oh, we should definitely talk on the podcast. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. We're both kind of approaching a problem that we've had and trying to solve it because we're
Mhm.
obviously not the only ones that have that problem. So,
Yeah. I live in New Jersey, and typically like where I live there's not much available in the sense of like if I wanted to buy a rental or even a flip, because most of the properties around me are like $1 million properties at this point, and taxes are super high and all that. So I'm really building this so that nationally anybody can really, do the research and find out, okay, this is a great investment property for me because I have the cash to do it. It's available on the market, so I can put in an offer today, and I can also see like what's my future cash flow is going to look like, all that kind of information. Our future state is we want to be able to also do some kind of prediction values using AI on the values of the properties and the demographics of the market too. So that's
mhm.
another component.
Is that the ARV that I see a lot of times? Oh, ARV is this.
Yeah,
Is it?
so the ARV is the after repair value. That is the number that you could possibly get on the market if you were to take control of the property, fix it up, and then put it back out. So
Yeah.
that is more, I would say that's more so within a year type of number. I'm talking about
And
capital
and some hard
appreciation.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about like capital appreciation, like seeing like, okay, if the market keeps moving 3 to 4% a year, what can we predict the value will be then? It's hard to do that given, economics and things like that, but we're gonna give it a shot.
Yeah. So I get I guess what are some of the challenges that you faced in building your solution so far, and how have you surmounted them? I'm sure all of them, just like
Yeah.
us, but
Oh my God, the biggest hurdle is data. Data is so undemocratized in the real estate industry. I've heard your prior speakers talk about like CoStar and other kinds of information out there, which are great, but they're really cost prohibitive to
Mhm.
many in the technology space when they're first starting out, including myself. And there's not really a great place that aggregates all of the MLSs so that you're able to get access to a multinational database. And I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. So we're kind of using like aggregators who somehow get the data that like Zillow would have or other property tech websites. Like PropStream is a big one, right? And they
Mhm.
provide a data API where you can take in that data, slice and dice it however you want. But it is expensive. You pay either for a monthly cost or you pay per API call. So
Right.
I'm interested to hear. I know you have your own startup. What do you use for data aggregation?
Yeah. So the backbone of what we've built it on is called Cherry Data, and they've been great to work with. They have a good startup program. I don't know where you're at in your funding journey, but it might be worth conversation. I can connect you with them after this. But you know, the challenge that we faced was, or one of the challenges, was that there's not standardization, but from state to state. The you know data in Colorado is not the same. They don't necessarily collect the same data points, or at least they don't name them the same from state to state. And usually states are pretty congruent from county to county on what they
Mhm.
collect. And my guess is it has something to do with like the state constitution, and they just model it off of that. But the other one of the other challenges is that you might have multiple parcels in a large multifamily deal, and it's like, okay, well, how do you recognize that? And then how do you sew those records together and then iron them out to create one congruent property record? You might,
Yeah.
or, a trend that's happening now as a way to try and skirt property taxes. You'll see some of these owners condoing buildings. You'll have 200, 350 units, and they say, okay, I'm going to what they do is you get a survey, and the survey lays out the mets and bounds of each unit. Then you create a condo association that you control as the owner, and it's a shell game is what it is. But what do you do if you have 350 condos? How do you recognize that, and how do you again sew it together? And so those are some of the challenges that we faced, and we had some great people working on it, and they were able to figure it out. But it takes some work, to try and do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, we have the same issue because like when we're trying to compare, find the rents and stuff. So there's like a 350 unit condo building that could obviously present some challenges in both sale and rental data. So that's something that we have really yet to tackle. We're really looking just at like single families for the most part right now, with the hopes that, we can get into the multifamily game as well.
yeah. Have you had some, I guess, successes out of it, either using the platform yourself, or do you have users yet? Or are you beta testing?
Yeah, no, we're still building the MVP, believe it or not. We only started doing this 3 or 4 months ago, so
Okay.
we're just getting started here. The idea is there and the framework is there. And my developers are still just beginning like to make stuff happen, figuring out which statistical models are the best for predicting the rents and things like that. So we're really at the infancy of it.
Nice. Interesting. That's it's fascinating.
Yeah,
Had
yeah, we.
Go ahead.
I was saying we do have a wait list, so if you want to sign up, on our website, you're more than welcome to, and we'll let you know as soon as we're ready to push out the MVP.
Yeah, that's sweet. How do you intend to monetize this?
Good question. I think we're going to do it as a subscription SaaS, probably going to be on a per report basis type of thing. Like maybe we'll give like three free on the first month or so, and then pro plan, and so on, tiered plan.
Yeah. What I've found is that a lot of people want to like try it before they buy it, which is fair.
Mhm.
I remember back in the day I signed up for Trep, and the first lead I called off of it, I closed the deal, which was amazing. I was like, this is awesome. I didn't close any other deals off of it though, so I didn't
Wow.
end up continuing with it, but it was a great, you know,
That's
experience or
really lucky.
opportunity.
The
Yeah, it
like the
was.
chances of that are like one in I don't know, whatever the lead rate is, like
Yeah.
3%,
It was
2%.
a guy who he was a captain. He was a boat captain, and he owned this apartment building. And I feel like he may have been going through a divorce or was fresh out of a divorce and like needed the capital. And I had this other investor that was, trying to accumulate properties in that submarket, and just came together perfectly. So,
See, so
um,
you kind of acted like the wholesaler, even though you were a realtor in that sense.
yeah.
Wholesaling is very similar to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's my life as a broker is, you
Yeah.
you do an analysis, well, first you got to go out and prospect for it. Then once you bring it in, you've got to do an underwriting. Then you agree on price and terms. Is there a assumable debt or do you have to go out and get fresh debt? Then you got to put a marketing package together, put it in front of a group of investors, and then facilitate the negotiation of the terms of the acquisition, and then you shepherd it through to closing. Hopefully, that's yeah, that's the
That's
ideal.
basically what it is, right?
Yeah, awesome. Well, so I guess where, there's prop tech is a burgeoning or emerging industry within the larger technology space. What are your thoughts on, where the prop tech space is headed?
So prop tech is a pretty broad spectrum
Yeah.
term, right? It covers a lot of different things. I mean, I think prop tech in the sense of commercial is probably leading the way in the sense that there's so many more tools that are available and much more information available for commercial investors, I think. Whereas, this is where I see my opportunity on the residential side, where there isn't that information available. And for sure, and in both categories, there's opportunities that are going to be with AI and machine learning and tokenization of real estate contracts and all that kind of stuff. So there's really plenty of green fields yet to come because this industry has been so reluctant to change over the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Like you tell me, like other than having the internet and more information available, what has really changed in real estate? It's still the wild, wild west out there, people doing all different types of contracts, different types of deals, being creative. There's really no industry like it. So to answer your question, I just think there's going to be a lot more ways that AI and the internet can weave into real estate than it has today.
Mhm. Have you gone through like your ICP exercise? Like your ideal customer profile? Who do you envision? I know you touch on it a little bit, but like we
Mhm.
got super granular with, initially it was like, yeah, brokers. Brokers are going to use this, brokers, acquisition people. But then we had to drill down and say, okay, well, we think that, you know, independent shops, boutique shops, independently owned franchises, regional and super regional firms are going to be the most apt to adopt the technology. And then even getting even more granular, like specifically who in each one of these companies do you think is going to be the early adopters? Have you gone through an exercise like that yet?
Not much more than I have on paper myself, like just thinking about who would really benefit from this. I know that our market is definitely not anything institutionalized, hedge funds or anything like that. We're really going to focus more on mom and pops that like have maybe 5, 10, 15 properties that they still want to keep accumulating, as well as the real estate realtors that serve customers like that. Because I feel like the MLS only gives you so much ability to generate things and provide to your customers. They give you like, okay, you can send out a daily digest of
Hmm.
what this investor is looking for, kind of the houses, and they can take a look at the MLS listing. But what beyond that?
Right.
Like you just have the sale information, the pictures, and some description. There's not really much else to go off of. If the realtor had a service that they can provide, here's all of that information plus all of like recommended, KPIs with the predicted cash flow. I think that would really resonate with their customers and have those customers go with them over other realtors or other softwares.
Yeah.
That's what I'm kind of betting on.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just thinking about.
Because like you yourself, right? You're a broker. You're more in the commercial space, right?
Yeah.
But did at any point you serve investors who are looking for single family houses or even small multifamilies?
I mean, when I first got started, it was whatever I could get my hands on. I think the smallest deal we've ever sold is like a fourplex. We've sold packages of houses. In fact, I have one under contract now, but we've never almost intentionally, we've never gotten into the, single family investor market because they're just the fees weren't there. The fee to justify it, if it's 6% on 100,000, here's how the math works. 6% on 100,000. And let's assume that there's a buyer's agent on the other side. Like if you go out and source that deal, well, you've got to split it 50-50, or I mean, maybe you don't anymore with the new NAR ruling, but I
Right.
think there's still fee sharing. So that means you're left with 3%. And then usually the typical brokerage model, with some exceptions, but larger brands will have a 50-50 split. Maybe it's up to a certain amount of GCI or gross commission income. But so then your 6% got whittled down by half, and then it gets whittled down by half again. You're making $1,500 on a deal. And it's like, why would I do that? It doesn't make any sense. So like
Yeah.
that's why we shied away from it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, nowadays it's definitely, I guess it's better to be on the listing side than the buyer's agent side because you'll automatically get at least that 3%, right? But I think for realtors who are really in tune with their investment base, like, and they're doing volume,
Yeah.
and look, not every property is just, $100,000. There's 500,000. Like I was working primarily in the Philadelphia market,
Hmm.
and all the properties there were mostly in the 400,000, 500,000 range. So there's definitely some money to be made there if you're doing 15 houses a year, 20 houses a year, right?
Yeah.
I would hope they're doing more, right? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help them do more by giving them the information to be able to facilitate that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we're kind of tackling the same problem just from different angles. So
Mhm. Well, yeah, I loved your when you described your product about, lead sourcing and sifting. I mean, like I wish I had something like that in the when I was doing the wholesaling business because
yeah.
it would have made it easier for me to contact people and know like I have a 70% shot versus a 20% shot.
Yeah, I mean, what we're trying to do is, because the brokerage model, especially when you're brand new, it's go out and make as many calls as you can. You know, there's no mandate, but it's like 100 calls a day. My goal was to have 10 conversations a day, and I had some rules around that. Like you couldn't talk to the same person multiple times in the day and count all those as separate conversations. But if I could do 10 conversations a day, 50 a week, that's what got me up and running. But yeah, it's a lot of sifting of and cold calling and voicemails that just go into the ether, and
Is
just is what it
is
is.
Is there a potential, like, because this is another idea that I have as a part of prop trends is to also add on off-market types of things. So with your software, is there a way to say, like, based on, let's say we were to build an aggregator of, let's say, Facebook or Reddit or other types of things that people are posting their houses for sale?
Hmm.
Can your software say like how likely they are to sell to me or like what exactly does it do?
Yeah. So what we are saying is, okay, here's every property in the market. And then we're going to look at the characteristics of those, the rental rates, the occupancy, those trends, how the subject property is faring versus competitor set, what the loan looks like, loan maturity, and things like ownership behavior patterns. So, sometimes you have these owners who buy and hold forever or build and hold forever. And so they never sell. So they would be, a low transactor versus you have other groups like the syndicators I was talking about earlier that their whole business model is to get in, add value, and then flip it out. And they make a lot of their money on the backside. I think sometimes it depends on the group, but they'll have like an upfront acquisition fee that's like a point. Maybe they have a point for asset management. And then they have a split on the backside of the proceeds. So
Mhm.
they would be a high transactor. So if we're looking at a pool, so say there's a, 1,000 properties in the market, you're going to have 350 to 500 owners. Of those, some of them are going to be, those legacy owners that never sell. Some of them are going to be guys that built a portfolio over their career, and maybe they're aging out and they want to, pass it on to the next generation. And then some of them are going to be those, more active real estate managers. And by manager, I mean like, syndicators or, the term hedge fund gets thrown around a lot. They're more what we would call like professional equity, where like that's their job. They get up every day, they raise funds, they go out and acquire properties, add value, cash flow them for, a time being. And then some of them have like a specific date, like, okay, it's got to sell by this date, almost no matter what the market's like. That's mostly on the REIT side. What we're saying is, okay, here's all the properties. Here are the ones that we think are most likely to sell.
Yeah.
And so it gives the broker or the acquisition professional the opportunity to go out and get in front of those before those properties actually come to market. Because once it comes to market, that means that somebody else has gotten the listing, or maybe I got the listing, but somebody has gotten the listing and they're in charge of like shepherding that sale process now. And I think a major differentiator in the multifamily investment sales space versus almost every other sector of commercial real estate, from what I'm learning and understanding, is there's really no buy side fee. There's no, like, it's kind of like, get the fuck out of here. We're not paying you, because the buyer's agent, especially with technology, there used to be a space, I think, for the buyer's agent when things were much more fractured and email wasn't as prevalent. You didn't have everybody's email address, but now like you can pay somebody up on Upwork to go out and find everybody's email
Yeah.
addresses, which marginal success I would add to that, but you can find it. If there's a will, there's a way. And so the value that the buyer's agent is adding in my space is little. And sometimes you'll have owners who say, "Oh, well, I'm loyal to my buyer's agent." It's like, okay, well, you pay him then. That's if you want to use your buyer's agent, you pay him. You pay him whatever fee
Right.
they
Right.
want. Um, So, we're saying, okay, here's an opportunity to go out and get the deal before it goes to market. And if you are a broker, we also have a buyer matching algorithm. So what we found in the identification of leads of properties for sales, we're anywhere from 20 to 40% accurate depending on the market. And that's through like back testing, seeing what actually
Mhm.
sold. And then our buyer matching algorithm is about 70% accurate in saying, okay, well, about 70% of the time, the list of buyers that we generate, and it could be, 30 buyers or so, they end up being the actual buyer of the transaction. So,
That's great.
and we're scraping that, so to speak, or trying to, it's really, and brokerage is a matching game, kind of like wholesaling is, where you're trying to match the
Buyer and seller.
sale opportunity with the right buyer. And so we're saying, okay, if you own properties like this already, say it's 150 units in Indianapolis. Well, if we've got a 200 unit in Columbus and they're of similar vintage, similar rental rates, et cetera, chances are this guy might be interested in it. And that's oftentimes the case.
Is there a way to adapt this to other type like property types like single family
Yeah.
or things like that?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Because I can see that can be tremendously useful in not only, for what I'm doing, but for the wholesaling world, which is vast. I'm telling you, there's a really underserved market there where people would do better if they had access to a tool like that that shows them the higher percentage values of buyers or sellers that would close.
yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely. I think, again, it goes back to the data and the access to the data. And like that's
Hmm.
a world that I'm not familiar with. So not to
Yeah.
say that we can't or that we won't. It's just I don't know. I don't even know how to attack the problem. So maybe there's an opportunity for us to work together on that too.
Yeah. For
Because
sure.
I mean,
Because
if you
like,
yeah, if you
yeah,
understand how that market works, you can help educate the team, and then there it is.
yeah, I'm glad to impart my knowledge wherever necessary. That's for sure. And I think that these wholesalers, I do think that they won't get as much benefit from my software as say yours would be because they care about is pipeline. And so if they can keep building the pipeline of people, sellers who are moving along and saying this guy's hot, this guy's cold, not ready, ready, almost ready,
Yeah.
having that is really tremendously valuable. And I think it's something that I could have benefited when I was starting out. Like I said, there could be a symmetry there, for us to look at.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess on that note, is there anything else that you would like to add? If you want a demo or have a conversation with Adam, you can go to proptrends, proptrends.io and sign up
Yeah.
for the wait list.
Or you can email me directly, adam@proptrends.io, please. I appreciate any and all communications, feedback, anything like that.
And he will get back to you. He got back to me like the same day. I was like, oh wow,
Yeah, I will get back to you. We are a small outfit right now, so any and all help is appreciated.
for sure. Awesome. Well, Adam, thanks so much for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks a lot, Stash. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.